Hey everybody, Tyree here with Before I Forget along with Kevin. Say hey Kevin.
Hey, everybody. I mean, hey, Kevin.
Howdy. Welcome back to the greatest podcast in the history of podcasts. Here we are, man. And kind of a special show because we had a special event occur, incident.
Not sure if I would call it a special. Um, you know, uh, yeah, unique. No, not unique. Um, I really don't know how to describe it, honestly. Um,
Historical event occurred.
Definitely historical. Regardless of your stance, it's definitely something that should probably be looked down on, which is crazy because it also kind of exposes um hypocrisy. We're talking about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Um, Crazy, right? Like we haven't had an attempt since I think it was like 1981, Reagan.
Well, and let you can presidential assassination attempts. Yes, 81. Remember, the female who was shot in Arizona.
Uh-huh. No.
She was running for senator or senator of Arizona, and she was shot in the head. She survived. She's married to the astronaut who one of them is a twin. They spent like 18 years in space and came back, and he was a little bit taller than his brother. Those guys. So
Huh.
people be popping off guns, man.
Well, it's definitely interesting, right? So like Ronald Reagan took, I think it was a 38 to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right under the left armpit.
that guy, the shooter, John Hinckley, has a YouTube channel.
Of
Like,
course.
yeah, he did 30 some odd years in a psych ward and was finally released in like 2016 under supervision. And then over time they reduced the amount of supervision that he needed. And in 2022, he was finally like free man. He regrets doing it, he says, and just wants to live his life and make music. Interesting. But this particular shooter, I can't remember his name. No, I do remember his name. I don't think we should. We'll say it once, and then after that, like because I don't want to bring I don't want to give, I don't want that guy's name, like it's a shitty thing. Matthew Crooks was his name, the shooter. He's not going to, in 30, 40 years, have a YouTube channel. He is dead.
Yes. Wait,
Um,
his head was exploded.
yeah. Yeah, I saw on Twitter, the Real News No Bullshit Twitter page had the photo of the guy. Definitely a collapsed cranium. Um, so So sticking to the facts of what we know now, I mean, today it is the 16th. The attempt happened on Saturday. It's Tuesday. Um, at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania and standing outside speaking to people, and he's leaning on the podium and he's looking off to his right and he's looking around, and then out of nowhere, shots ring out. Was a one shot, and then it's followed by another shot, and then a series of other shots after that. In the video, you can see in the background people start to react and kind of clamber out of the way. And in the background, off to his to the viewers left, President Trump's right, a counter sniper team for the Secret Service on a rooftop, and then the guy's obviously he's on his scope, and he pops up, goes back, and engages, and that's the end of that, right? Um, while the shooting is going on, Secret Service rushes the stage and basically tackle him to the ground, and then cover him. And then once they announce that the threat has been neutralized, they pick him up to move him off stage, where they have a car waiting. And in the process of that, Trump says, "Hold on, let me get my shoes." I guess they tackled him out of his shoes.
Yeah,
Um,
then shit is serious. It's real out there.
yeah, you need to tie your laces tighter. They tackle him out of his shoes. He gets on his shoes, and then after he's on his feet, he throws up the photo or the throws up the fist in the air, which gave us the photo that we all have been seeing lately with the blood on the side of his face and his fist up in the air and the American flag waving on two fire truck cranes or ladders uh,
Patriot.
above. I mean, don't get me wrong, man. That's definitely it's a it's a good shot. Um, so they rush him to his vehicle, hop in, and then gone. Next thing you know, he's on a flight.
Yep. Going to get that air.
Um, other interesting facts about it though. So the shooter was up on a building at about, they said 400 to 500 feet, 150 yards, something like that. And he staged a ladder in some bushes and then went back later on. I guess he staged his weapon too. Went back later on, climbed the ladder, concealed by the bushes, made it onto the roof, low crawled into position, using the slope to his advantage to conceal his movement to the counter sniper team. Once in position, took his shots. While he was getting into position, and there's video of this, people in the crowd alerting anybody and everybody to this guy on the roof and his movements. Nobody, I don't remember anybody shouting that he had a gun, but they did. There's a guy up there. There's a guy up there. For minutes, probably 2, 3, 4, up to maybe 5 minutes of people saying, "Hey, there's a guy on this roof," and law enforcement in the immediate area not really sure what to do. I guess there's also a cop who went up the ladder, and once he got to the roof, the shooter pointed his rifle at him, and the cop then retreated back down the ladder.
Swiftly.
Right. Like in Call of Duty, you just slide down the ladder. Um, and then the guy takes his shots and then is neutralized. If you watch some of the videos, and I know you have, and people watching, I'm sure you have as well. There's definitely there's obviously like the idea that it was a staged event, and that was actually no lie. With the amount of conspiracies out there, especially involving conspiracies in our with our government throughout the ages, um, that was definitely my first thought as well. Is that, oh, this kind of seems like a staged event because these things don't happen anymore. Not in the US anyway. Like there are assassinations all over the world of government leaders and so on, but that doesn't happen here, right? We think technology, tactics, awareness, something like that shouldn't be very easily pulled off. Yet some 20-year-old mathlete, you know, who failed his shooting exam in something. I'm not sure what that was. I don't know if it's like a JROTC thing or what it was.
Totally rejected from the shoot team.
Yeah.
Told not to come back because he was such a bad shot.
Yeah. It's like, how does this guy get into position, unseen and unabated? You know, like law enforcement didn't see him, the counter sniper team didn't see him. Now, granted, he could have climbed that ladder out of view of the. I guess it was concealed by bushes, so I understand like how he could have gotten there, but like I don't know, man. So like it definitely has elements that feed into a conspiracy for sure, but I mean, there are other things that like kind of suggest that maybe it's not, a stage thing.
Oh yeah,
Like,
deaths in the individuals in the crowd would suggest that it was not staged.
right, yeah. One man died. I can't say his name, his last name very well, which is it's a sad thing. He's a military former fire chief, father, brother, son. That's fucking tragic as shit. Hate it. Um, but I from my understanding of things, and this is just like limited to military stuff, and I definitely want your opinion on like the law enforcement side of it. But like my first thoughts when I saw that video of the counter sniper team on the scope, and he pops up from the scope and then comes back down and engages. My first thought was, why is he coming off the scope? Like, what is that? And so in my first thought was, well, that seems like the wrong thing to do. I'm not a sniper. I'm not sniper trained. I'm terrible on a scope. I'm much better on iron sights or red dot. So I don't really know, but that was just kind of my first thought. But then after kind of seeing it and hearing that like who was supposed to have control over that building, which was local law enforcement, um, that possibly the counter sniper was making sure that it wasn't one of the local law enforcement guys or the local SWAT team that was supposed to be there.
My assumption is him going off the scope for a second was I can't believe what the hell I saw or heard.
Yeah.
First time anyone from a Secret Service sniper team had engaged a suspect mid assassination attempt. First time ever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's it's not like like when, we were deployed to Iraq, right? We're it's war. We're definitely walking outside the wire. We're going to expect firefights. We're for these guys, they'll serve their entire time in the Secret Service and never do that. And so I can see that being like, holy shit, is this for real?
Yeah. I guarantee that's what it was. Only because there was a couple different things that makes me think like everyone, these professionals, they know how to do their job, but they were kind of caught off guard totally. If this guy had gotten a center mass shot off instead of aiming for the head, we'd be in a totally different conversation right now. Um, those follow on rapid fire shots were panic shots.
Hmm. Yeah,
Oh
I
shit,
agree.
scene now. I need to try to hit him. I know he's down. I don't know if he's hit, but he is down. He's covered
Yeah.
by agents. That's what I think happened there. I heard, and I'm not exactly sure, but the first shot actually killed that guy. It was a headshot, and everyone kind of didn't realize what the hell was going on because clearly you would expect safety at a rally for a presidential candidate. Um, the fact that that guy got onto the roof and those witnesses are trying to point him out and they're screaming because I listened to the video, saw the video. That's pretty tough, man. I
Yeah.
mean, you are watching this guy kill people, and there's nothing you can do about it. Not a thing until those snipers figured out what happened, and they got onto it pretty quick. It didn't take much time.
Oh yeah, no, once he was back on his scope, like it was almost immediate. Yeah. I didn't count the shots, but if I remember right, I mean he maybe got off six, maybe seven. Um,
I believe it was eight.
okay.
One, two, and then one, two, three, four, five, real quick before the
Yeah.
last.
Um, so according to the Washington Post, this article came out like 18 hours ago. He did use an AR style rifle, chambered in 5.56 or 223. So a little bit larger than a 22 round. It is the round that we use in the military commonly, with the M16 or the M4s. And another thing that made me think that maybe it was, I don't know, like
A
Trump's
small
re
caliber.
Trump, huh?
Thought maybe it was a smaller caliber, like a 22, and the sound
Well,
of
yeah, in the first videos that I remember seeing, the way the round sounded did not sound like a 22 or a 223 or a large caliber round. It definitely sounded more like a 22.
it.
But then in another video I saw that had the full thing, Trump speaking, then the shots going off, and then the follow-on shots and everything. Like, okay, that sounded a little bit heavier than a 22. But no, Donald Trump's reaction to it. Um, and so I do have a personal experience with something similar. Two really. One firsthand, one secondhand. The firsthand account, I when we were deployed, and I'm sure I've told this story before, but like we were standing on a rooftop at the OK Corral in Samara, and a shot just goes right past my head. And the sniper had taken a shot at me, and it was so close to me that when the crack of the round went by my head, it blew out my left ear. Like I couldn't hear, and it's completely deaf. And my initial reaction was to just hit the ground. I jumped down. I went down really quickly, and got behind cover, and was like, "Holy fuck, what was that?" Right? And it was a the rounds that they were likely using was a 308 or not a 30, I'm sorry, a 7.62 of some type. I can't, I don't know the specifics. Don't know what kind of rifle it was that they shot at me, but a large caliber round. Um, and so my initial reaction was panic and get down, right? The other one, when Dave um took the grazing wound across his back, uh, he said it felt like a cinder block was thrown from like a three-story building and hit him in the back, and he went down, right? So there's definitely a physical response to a round coming that close to you, but you watch the clips and he doesn't have that same physical response. It's almost as if what was what was that? Like what was that? Like maybe a bee stung you in the ear or something. And I was like, oh, that doesn't seem like the type of like response or reaction that you would get from being grazed by a bullet. But
Again, I think when it comes down to that, it's just wasn't expected. Not at my rally. What the
right.
hell?
Yeah.
Clearly, like looking or thinking about his reaction again, like in my head now, like the initial shot was like you said, what was that? Where did that come from? I remember, not or I remember, I read that he said that if he didn't look at the graph behind him, he would have been shot in the head clearly because he
Hmm.
just turned right at the second this happened. Apparently, this is what he says. So you can be shot and not even know that you've been shot because you wouldn't expect to be shot.
Hmm.
Clearly, once he did realize, oh shit, I'm bleeding, and he was down before they even said get down. So
Yeah.
he knows the training. He knows what he's supposed to do at least.
Yeah. And I know, and that is a good point. Like, holy shit, like, did I just, you know what I mean? Like trying to register everything. Um, but so my initial thoughts were based on his reaction, based on the sounds of the shots, and in the lack of reaction of the audience once Donald Trump was on his feet and moving. So I saw it in two separate clips. I think it was the ones that were shared in our group chat. Two separate clips, one of the shooting and then the separate clip of him being moved off stage by the Secret Service as he was fighting to get his shoes and holding his fist up. So there was a huge section of that in between those two moments that was removed from those two videos. And you watch that full clip, and you do see his reaction. You do see him go to the ground. You do see Secret Service jumping on him and covering his body. You do hear and see the counter sniper team uh, engaging and taking out the shooter. You do hear the Secret Service, um, stating that the threat has been neutralized and to move him. You do hear him, asking to hold up, let me get my shoes. You see all of that, going on. You do see the crowd in the back reacting and clearing out of the bleachers.
Mhm.
Um, so you do see all of that stuff in the original clip, and so watching that, you're like, oh, okay, well, this definitely happened. Those were real rounds, and this was a real attempt. And you think about it like, okay, even if it were to be staged, how do you stage a grazing wound? You know what I mean? Because his head is moving, and you watch the clip, right? He's looking one direction and he turns his head, and that's when the shot goes off.
Luckily Irish.
You know what I mean? And and I saw an animation basically of the top down view of the position of his head from right before the shot had gone off to when the shot did go off. And the angle of his head and the projected trajectory of that round, it would have hit him in the head, probably at about or right behind the ear. Um, and now, if he had shifted his weight towards his right, then it would have come closer to his face or his eye. Um, so it really is just kind of crazy. And there was a thing going around for a little bit saying that it was actually glass from the teleprompter that had hit him in the ear, and that's what caused him to bleed. But again, like that's not something that you can stage. You can't be like, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to shoot the teleprompter. Hopefully, glass sprays him in the face,
Mhm.
and we get a wound out of it, a superficial wound or something. And that's just not a thing. But The other reason I think that like I'm convinced that it's not a stage thing is like look at our political climate and look at the direction that we're going. Like this is something that people have been stating for years. You hear all the time, typically joking, but you hear all the time, um, somebody ought to assassinate this guy, or how has this president not been shot, or how has assassination not or attempt not happened in X amount of time, blah blah blah. Usually people are joking, but this is where I kind of like it kind of exposes some of the hypocrisy out there. Is people say this stuff all the time, and then when it happens, it's like, oh, well, no, we didn't really mean it. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. People's responses or people's mindsets before and then our mindsets after. Like once it becomes a reality, it's like, wait a second, no, we don't actually want this type of thing in our country, in this America. So um it's one thing to think that like, oh, well, the president is too old and might not live to see the end of his days in office. But it's another thing to wish a person dead um through
People
assassination.
have strong feelings, man.
They
I want
do.
to backtrack a little bit. Yeah, really, really strong. I got to backtrack a little bit to the conspiracy theories. Like, those must have been some fantastic microphones, uh, to pick up everyone's audio.
Hmm.
Every person who said something, they heard it. That's why a lot of people think like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, if you really think about it, go back and look at the video, listen to the video. You can hear everything everyone's saying. Um, Trump, when he was speaking to the microphone, gets fairly close. He's not like really far away like this. So very powerful microphones. To debunk any of that fucking conspiracy theory shit, the shooter was killed. Okay, there were some people in the crowd that were injured, and the former chief, was shot and killed. So, to debunk a lot of that stuff, hopefully, a conspiracy theory isn't uh in place here where they're like, fuck it, take out people if we have to. But that first shot, don't aim center mass, aim for the head. That's Hollywood shit. You
Video
fucking
games. I said the same thing.
fucking anyone who knows anything about rifles and shooting know, you aim center mass. And I'm not saying like, hey, this is me saying like this is what he should have did. I'm just saying like an experienced person, someone who's not really doing this on a whim, would have done better. Um, I think we're never going to find out a real motive. We're never going to find it. Just like the shooting in Las Vegas, we still haven't had anything about
Yeah.
that. That's the biggest one in fucking American history. So this one is going to rival some of the bigger ones, but I don't think we're going to get anything, unless he has something in that phone.
Which,
Again, it wasn't his rifle that he used; it was his father's. He borrowed it.
mhm.
The father, he's going to go through it right now because the FBI and everyone's going to be all the way up his ass. And that's where the gun control argument comes out. Like, how did he have access to these guns? Well, he's not 12. He's not 9. This dude's 20. Of
Mhm.
course, he has access to guns. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So we're going to be in a weird spot for a minute, with the argument of gun control and Secret Service dropping the ball and all kind of other stuff, because clearly it's one of those big, enormous incidents in American history for now.
Mhm.
My fear is people always want to top it. So,
Yeah. Well, and there was news of a masked gunman at the RNC that was arrested today. And there's another story that came out about an assassination attempt or assassination plot by the Iranians that came out today. Um, on the center mass thing, I mean, like you said, and I said the same thing. That's something that you play Call of Duty, and headshot is the first. With most of the sniper rifles in the game, like that's a drop, right? That's a kill, and that's how games are training people, um, right? And I mean, there's a lot of research that suggests that like violent video games like that do act in a way as a type of trainer for events, for at least how to like what optics look like, what sights look like, how to aim, or where to put the round, And some of the games would have like realistic ballistics that that account for trajectory of that specific type of rifle and the round and all of that stuff. But people who are trained in how to shoot in law enforcement or military, we are trained center mass. So based off of this screen, so like from here up, right, my center mass is here, right? This is the center of what you see. And, and this guy not doing that definitely shows that he's not a trained shooter of any kind. Um, Thankfully, because honestly, I just, despite how you feel about the person, that's just, that's not the kind of answers that we need. That's not the solution that we need to what people perceive as a problem. Um, it, yeah, it's just, it's shitty, but on the who's to blame, right? To point fingers, you know, Secret Service, the chief of Secret Service, I can't remember her name, Cheadle.
Mhm.
She's taking full credit, full blame, right? She says, we fucked up, basically, more or less. But the reason she had for not putting a team of snipers or something on that particular roof, she said because the roof was slightly sloped and they were worried about slipping.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the counter sniper team was on a roof that from my perspective looked even more sloped, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so that kind of ruined your argument, like, oh, we didn't want to put somebody on that roof because of the slope. We don't want them to slip off. So for safety reasons, while guarding a former president, which is
Yeah.
the Secret Service's job, we're not going to put a sniper team up on that roof.
My understanding was that the police in the local police in that area should have secured that roof, that building, period.
Yes. So I had heard the same thing that local SWAT, they were tasked with maintaining control in that building or of that building in that particular part of the perimeter. And they opted to instead put them inside the building. And I had heard early on that it was because due to the heat, they didn't want to deal with possible heat casualty while somebody's laying up on this roof. And I'd seen a post and I don't remember where I saw it, but they were talking about that and they said, man, the schmog is a dorky thing to wear until you need it. Like I don't know, laying on top of a roof in the heat, provide some type of shade. I mean, these guys are trained. That's their jobs. That they're trained to do these things, be in these types of situations, in different elements of the weather. So however hot it may have been that day, with the sun beating down on them, that's part of the job. Um, so I kind of saw that as a bullshit excuse. So I don't know if I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say that the local PD is to blame for not having somebody on that roof or not being able to react quickly enough to that guy crawling up the roof. Or if it's the Secret Service's fault because it is their operation. They are in control of that whole scene. They are the governing agency or whatever, however you want to call it. Um, So I'm inclined to believe that the Secret Service would be fully at fault,
Yes.
and then
Makes perfect sense.
shift the blame to the local PD.
Mhm. I don't think they're going to shift the blame so much. I think the head of Secret Service, she already came out and said, "Hey, that's on me. That's not
Yeah.
on the Secret Service. That's on me." So that's good for that individual. But of course, we're going to go and look at the police side of it too. Like they were people hollering, like, there's a guy up there, and one guy did say, I saw that he had a rifle clearly. So there's a guy on the roof at a president rally, candidate rally. The it should have been way faster. I mean, I know that guy had to jump back down because that rifle was pointed back at him, but like maybe he could have communicated to the folks looking like, hey, is he looking this way? Like help me out. Like everyone's screaming and all kind of shit, but do something. As the slope issue, um, we have those awnings that block the sun, you know. You have a picnic, you have one of those, you put it over the table. Like I'm sure you could have set it right in the middle of those two slants and it wouldn't have moved. You would have had some cover. Um, and I think that they were just so on a nothing's gonna happen here like that. Let's get the fuck out of here and go on to our next rally. Heads are gonna roll. That's just how it's gonna be. Security is gonna be stepped up for everybody.
Well,
Um,
two things there then. I had one thing, but you said that. So two things. One, um, for an op like this, all of those agencies would have been, or at least should have been, linked up on comms,
mhm,
right? Um, so there should have been, when the local PD who or whoever it was in those videos, you see a cop running by as they're pointing out, hey, there's a guy on that roof, there's a guy on that roof. His first thing, hop on the net. Hey, I got a guy on this roof, and that building should have been identified, right? Just like you do a range card and you identify key terrain or key features out in front of you, in front of your sector, right? You'll identify those things and you'll apply a name or a number or something like that. So, hey, I got a guy on the roof of building 3. Okay, counter sniper team can scan. Yep, I got him, and engage as soon as they see a weapon or he poses a threat.
mhm.
I saw somebody talking about how, you know, that could have been somebody who's just trying to get a better look at Donald Trump. It's a crazed fan with a telescope or binoculars, so they can't just shoot all willy nilly. And I totally understand that as well. So maybe that's why the sniper came off the scope to be like, for real, and then come back down. So I get that. But yeah, comms should have, I haven't seen it if it was or not, but comms should have been linked so that they all could have communicated between agencies to be able to relay any information like this. What was the thing that you said? Oh,
Nope.
so the head of the Secret Service also came out and said that they're not going to change any of their procedures going forward, that they're going to maintain what they do now. And I find that hard to believe because there's definitely a lot of lessons learned in this scenario. A lot. In my opinion, it's the Secret Service's job to protect the president and former presidents. All former presidents, once they leave office, have Secret Service protection for life. Um,
It's best.
in a situation like this, where you have a former president at a rally, it should have been nothing but Secret Service, in my opinion. I mean, you can involve local PD as far as outer cordon, outer perimeter, traffic control points in and out of the place, coming into parking and anything like that. County, state, stuff like that. But as far as the inner perimeter, that all should have been, in my opinion, Secret Service. I think it should have been Secret Service on that building, but that's just me. And it could, like you said, it could fall back on just a matter of complacency. Just like, man, this hasn't happened since fucking 81. Like, it's not gonna happen. Like, nobody assassinates presidents anymore. That's not a thing.
That's the thing, though. The last time a president or a president candidate was shot was back in 1981. There have been dozens of attempts on presidents since then.
Mhm.
People have flown planes into the fucking White House. People have shot off rounds at the White House. People have sent Obama anthrax. Somebody tried to kill Bush with a grenade. It just didn't go off. The handkerchief was on it too tight. Everyone down the line that they've been attempts, and all those attempts have been by people who are effing crazy.
Mhm.
That's not a good term for it, but sure, this is going to be the same issue with this guy. But yeah, there's no difference. There's no difference that I'm gonna find that they're gonna find that's gonna convince me that it's anything different from a person who, regardless of, they came out and said he was a registered Republican, but he donated money to Democratic causes. So what the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
You need to forget about all that shit because that's not gonna get you anywhere. You just got to look into his background. People who knew him say he wasn't a bad guy. Not like a some people say like he was a little bit to himself, but he was a sweet, loving, kind dude.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
a loner.
yeah. What makes a sweet, loving, kind dude say, "I'm gonna borrow my dad's gun, climb this roof, set this shit up, and shoot at the presidential candidate"?
Yeah.
You know what does that? the rhetoric from either side of the aisle. We can't get along, and people will soak up that shit through social media, news, anything that will get them going. And it doesn't take much to grab a gun and go shoot.
Yeah.
That's the issue. We're going to hear people, from both sides, blaming the other side for it. I already read some of that, and it's fucking crazy that it came out so quick from, who you would expect it to come from in some cases. We can do better, you know. Well,
Well,
now we're not doing better. We're shitty.
and since the attempt on Saturday, um, I've seen four, hang on, one interview and three public speakings that President Biden has done since then. And so when it happened, obviously he came out and briefed the Situation Room, the other one from the Oval Office, and then he did a sit down interview with somebody where they confronted him about verbiage that he had used some time ago about placing a bullseye on Trump and asking him what he meant by that. And really, that to me, that's just trying to like, we everyone knows what it means when someone says, "I'm going to put a bullseye on that guy." It doesn't mean we're going to shoot the dude. It means we're targeting them. We're coming after them for the bullshit that they've done and the things that we disagree with and so on. It's not a violent term, even though its origins are obviously in shooting. But that's not we know that the common person knows that that's not what President Biden meant. But this guy, the reporter's going after him for it and being like, "Oh, well, you said," and then the next one at a big rally of sorts, and in that one, and I think that was just today or yesterday, you see President Biden attacking the gun issue. We have to ban assault rifles. We do. It's a thing. We have to ban assault rifles. Blah 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 blah. He's being very passionate and he's yelling and being loud on the mic and making a big show of it. So the one side is already using this to the advantage of trying to, um, limit the Second Amendment right, and then the other side is using it to you can't kill him. Well, we tried to take him to court and tie him up and got him with 34 felonies and this and that and the other. And we tried to kill him, and you can't keep this man down, right? Like clearly the guy, right? I will say, um, when it happened and President Biden first came out and made his initial comments, that whoever wrote that, because we know it wasn't him, whoever wrote that did a really good job at having the Biden administration did a really good job with with the Biden administration's response because it was neutral. It was it was favorable, I think, to both sides. It was the first time that you really see Joe Biden acknowledge Trump as a person, um, calling it a big tragedy. We hope that he's okay. He's in our prayers and things of that nature. So, I mean, it was really well written and delivered, which is unusual considering what we have seen lately from the president.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought that was handled well. Is probably the only thing I think that this administration has handled well. Um, but it's just really interesting. So I'm actually because of that and all of this, like the next debate between the two, I think will be really interesting as well. Um, because if you ask me, this this attempt definitely will boost Donald Trump's ratings, and I would be completely surprised if he didn't win. Just saying. I mean, we saw the same thing with Ronald Reagan, and how the maps turned to his favor, the polls turned to his favor. Um,
But and here I am, stuff I study. Way, 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 way back in the day, Teddy Roosevelt was having a speech and he got shot in the fucking chest, and he continued his speech for 9 to 89 minutes.
yeah,
After that, in the polls back then, he was leading by a bunch. He lost by a landslide. So
I mean, sure.
that does not help you necessarily. It sucks, but it doesn't help you out necessarily. So keep that in mind, folks. Don't jump to conclusions. I thought that immediately too, like, oh man, they just handed the election to this guy.
Yeah.
Only because, like they say, this guy's like the fucking Teflon Don right now. I mean, just a
Yeah.
day, a couple of days after, or a day after he's nearly assassinated, his rock solid fucking tr- uh, court case with the secret documents is dismissed. It's like, man, here you go. You fucking take care of that. Like
While he's out playing golf.
I gotta say, man, like I'm not a fan of Trump, and I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it, man. But I'll keep it PG here. He was pretty smart while he was in office, regardless if you think he's a slow individual like me sometimes. I think he's like that, but he knew to cover his ass in every single angle like a criminal. But anyway,
I
I
mean,
don't I don't think this is going to help him out that much.
I think it
So,
already is.
I was speaking to Phil Hendry on Facebook about it, and my first thing was, oh man, they handed him in the election, and Phil said, no, not necessarily. The people who are already going to vote for him are already going to vote for him. That's not going to change. I don't think the people who were on the fence are going to be like, oh well, he survived an assassination attempt. Let's ignore all the other bad crap he's done.
Mhm.
I don't think that's going to change. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more campaigns, and there's going to be a lot more protection at those campaigns, but it's going to be what it is, man. It's not going to, I don't think it's going to help him out or hurt him. It's not going to hurt him at all, but I don't think it's going to help him so much after a couple of days of really absorbing what happened. Um, I don't think it's going to help him out that much. It might give him a little boost, but then again, times are different, man.
Well, I think the only reason I say that though is just because I mean you cannot scroll social media without seeing something. You know, every third, fourth post is about it,
Mhm.
right? Either a funny meme or, more to the story. Um, but that's why I say like this next debate will be really telling just because, obviously the last debate was a clear cluster from the Biden administration. He did not articulate very well. He did, they didn't stay on task at all. They got into an argument about their fucking golf game. Like here
Yeah,
we are trying to like ask the current president and the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee, a former president, questions on about how they intend to run the country and make things better or lead their presidency, and they argue about their golf game. Nobody gives a flying fuck how many fucking how well you got your game while you were vice president. First of all, that's the last thing people I think want to hear. Like, oh, when I was vice president, I got my fucking par down to whatever the I don't know golf terms, but that's
and
not what people want to hear. Nobody wants to hear that shit, dude. Like, we want to hear about how you're gonna fucking make things better.
yeah. In my
Um,
opinion, Biden shouldn't have bit the bait on that. Like,
he definitely bit the bait.
there's
Yeah.
so many things that Trump lied about blatantly during that whole thing, and there was no questioning anything from the other side besides, you're despicable. Like, no, man, call him out on those lies. Like, get to the real shit here. And like you said, we're talking about like golf handicaps. Um, I believe, then here's a little switch in gears. Trump just nominated his vice president, and there was a
Mhm.
guy who used to hate his guts. Like, literally said, "I'm not a Trumper. He is the American version of Hitler."
Uh-huh.
Like, really bad stuff back in the day. Like, imagine if this attempt was successful. What if this guy behind him was running and he won? We
Well,
that
I
guy.
do I do have a small theory about that too. JD Vance out of Ohio, he's a senator there. 39 years old, former Marine, enlisted Marine. Um, Graduated college. I can't remember what college, but he graduated college in a 4-year degree in 2 years, summa cum laude, and then went on to Yale Law and got his degree there. And now he's a senator at 39 years old and apparently the nominee for vice president, who has been a very vocal and loud critic of Donald Trump over the years, like you just said. It's an interesting take, right? It's an interesting selection just because of that. Like, so you Donald Trump selects this guy who has been a huge critic of his as vice president. Why?
To
I,
real. So,
to reel in people who have also been huge critics of Donald Trump, right? So I think that could switch people. I don't know. Again, we'll see as we move forward, but it's an interesting pick for sure. Um, the way you were describing Donald Trump just then, um, about like you watched that debate, it reminded me of watching Dennis Rodman play. You know what I mean? Like he was constantly pestering people, constantly getting them to get them flustered and to foul and do all these things. Like they called him the worm for a reason, man. He was a Weasley dude. You know what I mean? And it just reminded me of that. But I don't know, man. It's really it's an interesting scenario that we found ourselves in. Like going forward, I think it's going to be an interesting election, for sure.
mhm. People
But
listen. I got to say this, man. We're all intelligent individuals. Uh, you can like one side or you can like the other. You can like neither. But you can't pick up a gun and start shooting people. That's the bottom line, really. Like the absolute lowest line that you need to do or not do is start killing folks because you don't agree with what they say.
mhm,
That's what debate is for. That's what turning off social media is for if you don't like what they're saying. Like get away from it. If it gets you so riled up that you gotta go grab a fucking pitchfork and raise hell, you're like, maybe you need to stop and get some help, man. Like there's all kind of ways you can talk to a therapist or talk to a friend, and hopefully if you tell your friend that I want to pick up a gun and here's my plan to go shoot the president or president elect, they'll fucking tell the police, law enforcement. That's what they're there for too. Like I said before, I don't think we're going to learn why he did this, but it really doesn't matter because it was something that happened. It's world it's American history now.
yeah.
Um, we're going to pick it apart for a long time until the next one happens. That's just how it is. We're still talking about Reagan when he got shot and how did he not get hurt worse and all this kind of stuff. And we're still debating that all these years later. We're still talking about Kennedy. We don't know what the hell happened with that, like clearly. So we're
Oh
gonna,
yeah.
yeah, we're always gonna go back and re-examine stuff, and it's gonna happen for a long time here. Technology now, compared to technology back then. I mean, we got a picture of the bullet flying by his head back in the Fruiter films, we can't figure out if his head was going forward or backwards. Things are
Yeah.
a lot. Technology is going to help us out, but it's not going to give us all the answers, I think.
No,
But
it's definitely not. Yeah.
again, just don't shoot people. Don't
Yeah.
shoot. Don't blow them up. Don't plot with other folks to blow up groups of people you don't like. Just fucking think about it a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yeah, and to add to that, to piggyback, to caveat, um, you
Caveat.
know, the language we use around the kids we raise, right? Watching the news and getting upset at the candidate that we don't like because they belong to the other party or they're the other guy, and boldly stating in your living room around your impressionable children, not saying that that's what this father did, just saying as in addition, saying stuff like someone ought to shoot that guy. Like some people will get the idea, and some people will think, well, yeah, maybe somebody should shoot this guy. I'll take one for the team. I will martyr myself because he had to know he's not getting out of there alive. You know, um, just being careful about the things that we say around, it's one thing to think it. You might think it like, hey, man, I really can't stand this person and they probably need to be taken out. Um, but it's another thing to impress upon other people that that's what should happen so that they get the idea to go do it themselves. That's a thing to consider. Um, and the fallout from this, like you had mentioned earlier on, like what's going to happen going forward? Well, now people have learned that assassination attempts are possible. And boy, did he get close. Maybe if he was a better shooter, maybe if he was a better tactician, maybe if he thought it out a little bit longer or plotted a little bit better, maybe if he had certain skills, that person might be out there. I mean, we have a country of like 350 million people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of skills. So this is stuff that we have to be leery of. Like these are things we have to look out for. So going forward, I think it could be possible that we see more of this. You know, you know, the more we get from news articles online about what the government agencies are doing to look into things, how they're investigating and getting into people's phones and looking through their history and going to their homes and rifling through all their stuff to determine motive or the who, what, when, where, why, and how, you know, people are going to get smarter and smarter with how they plan things. And we have history books that detail, you know, various attempts and other things, throughout history. Um, I don't know, man. I am. It's concerning. It's concerning going forward because we don't know how or what's going to happen next. We've had we this is a real assassination attempt,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
America America's a weird place, man, and we're in the business of trying to top each other.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm sure someone already has a plot for something else already planned. That's just the way people are. The thing is, us good guys, we got to keep our eyes open because we all know somebody who is competitive, but you never know they might be competitive enough to pick up a rifle and go shoot at somebody.
Mhm.
The
Fanatical enough, hateful enough.
the flip side to a lot of that stuff, um, not a flip side. I'm not gonna say anything that's gonna get me in trouble, but you gotta watch what you say to people sometimes. Trump, he works in mysterious ways when it comes down to his threats against folks and things like that. Like you're gonna piss somebody off, and your Secret Service team ain't the Avengers. They're not gonna figure. They're not Tony Stark. They're not gonna figure out the next thing before it happens and try to defend you. They're going to try the best they can. But again, if this guy was a better shot, we'd be in mourning right now.
We'd have a different conversation for sure.
Completely different conversation. Um, the gun control argument's coming, man. It's
Oh,
it's
it's already happened. That's what I'm.
um
That's what I'm saying. It was today or yesterday. President Biden was out there going off about it.
yeah. Um, I suggest, and I think it's funny. Like if the Republicans and the Democrats got together and they wanted to argue about this, like, oh no, no more gun control, and the Democrats are like, yeah, gun control. And we have this bill called the Trump Protection Act. Would the Republicans vote it down? It's named after Trump. There, make it happen, baby. I
Yeah.
want, I want, I want to see something happen, man, because I don't care if it's gun control. I don't care if it's just better Secret Service tactics. I don't know, man. I just want to see something because that's fucking crazy. This is not the 1960s. Like that's how our political climate is. Like we're literally in 1963 right now. We're in the middle of a Cold War with Russia. They got boats at Cuba chilling right now, and we're out here shooting at our leadership. Like there's a bigger picture out there, and it's not what's going on here with the red and the blue fighting. Like, get over that shit. Like, there are people out here who are actively trying to get nuclear weapons to fight other countries, or at least to protect themselves from other countries. The world is a completely different place, but it's extremely familiar right now.
Yeah.
Extremely familiar. So, um, everyone needs to realize that the people that are running are running. They're not going to get out of this race right now. We need to vote in younger folks. We need to vote in people who you really believe in as opposed to you really have to vote for because you don't feel the other party. Um, that's all I got to say about it, man. The we're in a weird time. We're in a time machine right now. We're in the 60s with flat screen TVs.
Well, we're kind of rolling up the, you know, 1930s to 1960s, really, because we're on the brink of a third world war. We're on the brink of the second Cuban Missile Crisis, potentially. We're attempting to assassinate former presidents. It's definitely an odd time. Um, and to all of that, I'll say, despite your political leanings, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. This is our country, right? We're made up of diversity, right? And it's that diversity that used to separate us, but now the world is a pretty diverse place. But it's the American people that make up the American country, right? If it wasn't for the differences in, politics and opinion, religion, then, you know, we wouldn't be who we are. And so that's what our goal should be. That's what our focus should be, like voting in the people that who truly have the America's interest at heart, right? Because that's what matters when it comes to the elected officials at any level. Do they have our best interest at heart? Not are they Democrat or are they Republican, which is historically how people, vote, especially older folks. Um, you can look through the years and you can see the parties, the two major parties flip-flopping, right? Like, back in the day, the Democrats were the party of the people, the party of the poverty. Now the Republicans are supposed to be that. Or that's just what we're told. At the end of the day, they're all the same people. They just want to get elected into their position, so they're going to say whatever they want to say. But what it comes down to, whether you are a diehard Biden fan or a diehard MAGA Republican, you're an American, and that is the goal. That is the focus. Fanaticism and violence is not only unnecessary, it's just fucking wrong. You don't need to resort to that. Our country was set up so that we wouldn't have to resort to that. Now, I understand that our founding documents say things like to alter or abolish a destructive government and set forth a new one. I understand that it says that, but there are other ways to do it. We don't need to have a revolution. People keep quoting things that our founding fathers have said. The what is it? The tree of liberty has to be refreshed with the blood of tyrants. It's just people take that stuff and they take it literally. Like, well, this is what has to be done. There has to be a revolution. And if we keep believing in this stuff and we keep believing in these stories, eventually we're going to find ourselves in another civil war. And so now we're going to go ahead and fucking throw into our time machine going back to the 1860s and having a civil war, this time over something completely different, over whose party is right. The, the goal is a better America. The goal is a better way of living and better people. Not, well, my party's right and your party's wrong. Therefore, we deserve to shoot you.
It's past that though. In some cases, it's not just that; it's mental illness. It's straight up like it has nothing to do with the party. Sometimes, like I think it's going to be with the case with this one. It's just in my head, this guy needs to die, regardless of what the hell he's talking about on that podium, on the TV, a tweet, or whatever. This guy needs to fucking die. That's what that guy thought. Okay, that's what these people are going to think that actually try this stuff. Like that's their goal. So um you got to keep an eye on people, man. Start to pay attention to the rhetoric they're using, I guess. I guess they can give a little clue about what they're going to do because everyone wants to top each other. That's what I'm really afraid of. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, man, we're in a it
Twilight
could
Zone.
yeah, it could be 63 or it could be 1863, 60.
Yeah, no shit.
Not a
Oh
big time.
shit, dude.
It's not a big time difference either, really.
I don't, right. It's really not, honestly, 100 years and you think about it. And honestly, this is definitely there's significant events that happen throughout history that like are pivotal points, right? I mean, 9/11 was very obviously a pivotal point in American history, world history, really, because the impact that it had globally because of what happened after, not because of necessarily what happened here.
Hmm.
But this is another one of those pivotal points, at least in American history, and what happens moving forward. Um, so we'll see. Hopefully, it doesn't devolve into more attempts, more shootings, more chaos. Hopefully, people can keep their fucking heads on and do what they're supposed to do as good fucking Americans. But we will fucking see. I do believe that if you um are capable, um uh if you have the I can't even think of it anymore. I was thinking about it all day today, man. Now it's just fucking left my head.
Yeah, it was something I was just slamming. I was ready to fucking yeah, dominate. It just fucking skeeted away. It
I mean, if,
happens.
if you have the possibility to take action, then you have the responsibility to take action.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, I don't know. I
If you
just,
run and shoot at somebody, you can go to the fucking polls and vote. You can talk to some
right.
to maybe believe how you believe in the right possible way. Like, hey man, this is a good. Let's have a debate on shit instead of picking up guns. I see what you're saying, man. I feel what you're saying. It's not lost.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. You can watch the new season of The Boys. A lot of people are all pissed off about it because it's a mirror of our American society today. And you have the Homelanders and the Starlighters, and they're fucking rioting and fighting and doing this and that and the other. And it's not fucking necessary. Yes, we have the right to peacefully assemble and protest. We do. But the moment that turns into slander and violence, like you have crossed the fucking line and you're doing the wrong thing. You are no longer serving your purpose. You have now gone beyond that and you're just trying to be mean. There are so many people on the red side, on the Republican side, on the MAGA side, who you'll see fucking posts on social media, talking about liberal tears and making the people who vote for Biden cry because they're a bunch of babies and blah 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 blah. Just they're being malicious just to be malicious, and it's fucking wrong. Like that's not American politics. It's not how it's supposed to be in this fucking country. At the end of the day, a president gets elected and they're expected to do a job. We do see it at the higher levels on Congress and Senate though. A president gets elected, the other party doesn't like him, so they spend the entire term trying to derail and push him out of office and fucking whatever else. They're not even working together. It's a fucked up mess, but like you said, we need to vote a lot of these fucking people that have been in office for the last 60 fucking years out. We have to vote in younger people, progressive people, people who know what it's like to be on the ground, to be an everyday American. That's who we have to vote for, not these fucking losers who like have been in fucking politics literally their entire lives. It's
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. But that's my soapbox. And I think we're kind of
Yeah,
rambling a bit, but
no, we're good, man. We're right where we need to be.
yeah. I will say for people who have watched or listened this far, if you are experiencing this video on a platform that allows you to comment, please leave your comments below, or wherever you can. You can go to our Facebook page and make comments there as well. Just before I forget on Facebook, and because we want to hear what people have to say, right? We want to understand what the American people are thinking. We want to understand if there's a lesson that has been learned. Is this an event that's going to bring us closer? Are we going to be more united? With the understanding that, like, wait, assassinations are wrong. This is not the American that I want to live in. Or is it going to be more divisive, right? Or more people going to be like, yeah, fucking finish the job, which we've already seen videos of that too. Um, so leave a comment and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, word. And on that note, we can end this show. Thank you for listening to Before I Forget. Please, listening and watching, please like, listen, share, subscribe. Leave a comment wherever you like, listen, share, and subscribe. I want to thank you guys for making us the number two, and I'm happy to be the number two still, second week in a row podcast for veterans in America, according to a website, which I fucking, hey man, I'll take it. So,
According to a website. It's like in parentheses at the bottom.
yeah, real small. Like, this is what they think, though. I agree, man. This is, our little baby. We're gonna come back with more shows, man. We're gonna bring it back up because it's not down. It's
It,
just
it it is cool to see that number two slot, especially considering we came out at like number what was it, like 9 or 10. I think we dropped to like 12 or 14, and then out of nowhere we're number two.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. And then this week when the next list came out, we're still number two. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. Man, if we can get number one, I don't know how, man. If we can get it, boy, I'll frame it up on my wall. And that'll be the end of whatever, who gives a shit. Because we're cool like that. And yeah, man, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Say bye, Kevin.
Bye, Kevin.
It's 20 hours.